Now that you've completed the first video about forces and all the concepts that covers, you're ready to move on to a quick problem about it. For this problem, draw a free body diagram of a rocket, and here's some things you know about the rocket. The engine's on, but thanks to gravity and air resistance, it's going upwards at a constant velocity. However, there is a crosswind blowing to the right. Now for this diagram, please draw and label all forces, and then label if it's accelerating or not accelerating, and draw the direction you think it's accelerating in. I'll give you a few seconds to draw this or think of it in your head. You can pause the video, and then we'll go through the solution together. Okay, hopefully all of you are able to figure that one out. If not, don't worry, and we'll go through this together. So let's draw a rocket here. And since we know our rocket's on, the engine is on, we're going to draw these flames coming out of the back. And that'll remind us to include the force of thrust in our calculations. Now, even though the flames are going down, it's very important to remember that the thrust is upward. The rocket's engines are accelerating it upwards, so it's an upwards force, because the force points in the direction of acceleration. So we use the big F notation, capital F, and then thrust, to mean the force due to thrust. Now, we mentioned in the problem that there's both gravity and air resistance. Since it's going straight up, both of those are going to be straight down. So force of gravity, and then force, we'll call it a friction. And then the last part of the problem is there's a crosswind, so we'll call it the force of the wind blowing to the right. Now we need to decide whether it's accelerating or not accelerating. We did say that it's going upward at a constant speed. So we know that the force of thrust must exactly cancel out with the force of gravity and the force of friction. However, that only talks about the upward speed. That doesn't mention any of the speed to the left or the right. And in this case, the force of the wind blowing right is an unbalanced force. There's no force slowing it down to the right. So we will say it is accelerating, and the direction of the acceleration that we should expect to see is to the right, because the forces are pointing to the right, the ones that are unbalanced, that is. A few things to watch out for in problems like this. Just because there's an upward velocity or an upward speed doesn't mean that there's an upward acceleration. When we talk about forces, we're talking about acceleration or change in speed. So it could have been easy to think that there was a positive upwards force because the rocket was going up, but here that it really isn't the case. There's only a positive upward force if the acceleration is going up. And the one other thing to watch out for is to make sure your thrust vector is going in the right direction. With rockets, it can be a little bit confusing. The flames are coming out of the bottom, going this way. So it's tempting to say that the force is that way, but the force really isn't. Instead, the correct force is in the upward direction, because it's pushing the rocket up. And if we think of a force as a push or a pull, then that'd be the right direction. Hopefully this helped and you're ready to move on to the next lecture. If you're still confused, maybe go back and watch the first force lecture.